beyond the plot. The Wishing Stone. In the sleepy town of Marlow, nestled deep within the sprawling forests of New England, the summers belong to the children. Endless days of bike rides, secret hideouts, and adventures that stretched until dusk made every moment feel alive. But the summer of 1987 was different. It was the summer the kids found the Wishing Stone, and nothing in Marlow would ever be the same. The discovery. The day started like any other. 5 kids, Jenny, Mark, Sarah, Danny, and Lucas, were exploring the woods behind their neighborhood. They called themselves the Hollow Creek 5, named after the small creek that trickled through the forest. "Hey, over here!" Danny shouted, crouching near the base of a gnarled oak tree. The others scrambled to join him, their sneakers crunching through the undergrowth. At first glance, it was just a rock, smooth and polished like a river stone, but unusually black, with strange carvings etched into its surface. Symbols none of them recognized spiraled around it in patterns that seemed to move when you looked too long. "What is it?" Jenny asked, brushing her blonde hair from her face. "A rock, dummy," Lucas teased, giving her a playful nudge. "It's more than a rock," Sarah said, her green eyes wide. "It looks special." Danny picked it up. It felt cold, unnaturally so, even under the sweltering summer sun. "It's mine," he declared. "No way," Lucas said, snatching it from his hands. "We all found it. Besides, it was probably just some old junk." As the group bickered over who should keep it, Sarah spoke up, her voice soft but firm. "What if it's magic? What if it grants wishes?" The others laughed, but the idea lingered in the air, like the thick summer heat. The first wish. That night, Jenny couldn't sleep. Her curiosity burned brighter than her fear of breaking the group's unspoken rule. No solo adventures. She slipped out of her house, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she made her way back to the tree. To her relief, the stone was still there, lying where they'd left it. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands. "I wish," she whispered, "for a new bike, a red one, with a basket." The stone grew warm, the carvings glowing faintly. Startled, she dropped it, but the glow faded almost instantly. She waited, heart pounding, but nothing happened. Disappointed, she left it behind and went home. The next morning, Jenny found a brand new red bike sitting in her driveway, complete with a shiny basket. Her parents swore they didn't buy it, insisting they'd planned to save for her birthday. Jenny knew better. She couldn't wait to tell the others. The rules revealed over the next few days, the group tested the stone. Each wish came true, often in strange and inexplicable ways. Lucas wished for a Game Boy, and one mysteriously appeared on his front porch. Danny wished for a dog, and a stray golden retriever showed up at his house that night. But then Mark made his wish. "I want a treehouse," he said, holding the stone tightly. "The best one ever." The following morning, Mark was gone. His parents thought he'd run away, but the group knew better. They found the treehouse deep in the woods, a towering structure that seemed to have grown from the trees themselves. Inside, they found Mark's flashlight and his backpack, but no sign of him. "That's not normal," Sarah whispered. "Something's wrong with the stone." Lucas shook his head. "Maybe Mark just left. The treehouse was his wish. Maybe he's fine." But they all knew the truth. The stone granted wishes, but it demanded a price. The spiral begins. Despite their fears, the stone's allure was too strong. The remaining kids swore to be careful, but the temptation proved irresistible. Each time they used it, the results became more sinister. Danny wished to be the best baseball player on his team. At his next game, he hit home runs every time he stepped up to bat, but afterward, he vanished, leaving his uniform and bat behind on the bench. Jenny begged the others to stop using the stone, but Lucas refused. "We just need to figure out the rules," he argued. "Maybe if we word the wishes better," but Sarah wasn't convinced. "The only rule is that it takes one of us, every time." Lucas ignored her warnings. That night, he wished to be rich. The next morning, his family won the lottery. By evening, Lucas was gone. The truth unearthed, Jenny and Sarah were the last ones left. Desperate for answers, they turned to the town's reclusive historian, Mr. Hargrove. The old man listened intently as they recounted their story, his expression growing graver with each detail. "The stone you found," he said, "is older than this town. Older than anything around here. It's what we call a wishing stone, but it's really a trap." "What do you mean?" Jenny asked, clutching Sarah's hand. Hargrove explained that the stone was cursed, created by a long-forgotten civilization. It granted desires, but its power was fueled by sacrifice. For every wish fulfilled, it claimed the wisher or someone close to them. "It's insatiable," he said, "and it won't stop until it's fed." "Can we destroy it?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Hargrove shook his head. "Many have tried. The stone always returns." The final stand. Determined to break the curse, Jenny and Sarah decided to confront the stone. They returned to the woods, finding it where they'd left it, its carvings glowing faintly in the moonlight. "I'll do it," Jenny said. "I'll make the last wish. Maybe it'll stop if it takes me." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We do this together." Jenny hesitated, then nodded. Together, they placed their hands on the stone. "I wish," they said in unison, "for this stone to be destroyed forever." The forest erupted in a blinding light. The air grew thick with an otherworldly hum, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The stone cracked, splitting into shards that dissolved into ash. But as the light faded, Jenny realized she was alone. Sarah was gone. The aftermath. The town of Marlow was never the same after that summer. The remaining children grew up, forever haunted by the memories of what they'd lost. Jenny, the sole survivor, never spoke of the stone again. Years later, hikers in the woods reported strange occurrences. Whispers in the wind, faint glowing lights, and, most chilling of all, the sound of children laughing. The wishing stone was gone, or so they thought. But deep in the heart of the forest, beneath the roots of a gnarled oak tree, something dark and smooth began to stir. It was only a matter of time. Unraveling the mystery. By the next morning, the remaining children sat in Danny's treehouse, their faces pale with fear and exhaustion. No one spoke for a long time. The once playful bond between them was now fractured by a shared and unspoken guilt. Tommy finally broke the silence. "We need to get rid of the stone," he said, his voice trembling. "It's cursed." Danny shook his head. "Number, we can't just throw it away. What if that makes things worse? We don't even know what it is." Emma, hugging her knees, spoke softly. "It's more than cursed. It's alive. Didn't you hear the voice? When Danny made his wish, it was like it wanted him to say it." Her words chilled them. The stone didn't just grant wishes, it tempted them. "We need to figure out where it came from," Danny said, glancing at the others. "Maybe if we understand it, we can stop this." Reluctantly, they agreed. The four of them, Danny, Tommy, Emma, and Sarah, decided to search for clues. The old journal. The kids spent the next few days combing through the woods where they had first found the stone. Danny remembered the strange carvings in the tree where the stone had been buried. Emma brought her dad's camera to take pictures of the symbols, hoping they could decode them later. One afternoon as they searched, Sarah found something buried in the dirt near the tree. A small, weathered box. Inside was a leather-bound journal. The journal's yellowed pages were filled with spidery handwriting. It belonged to a man named Elias Warren, who had lived in the town nearly a century ago. He wrote about the stone and its dark history. "The stone was not made by man," one entry read. "It is a relic of something older, something cruel. It feeds on desire and takes as payment what is most dear to the wisher." Another entry detailed how Elias had found the stone as a boy and made wishes with his friends. Just like now, each wish came at a terrible cost. Elias had tried to destroy the stone but failed. "It cannot be broken, only passed on. If you bury it deep enough, perhaps it will be forgotten." Tommy slammed the book shut, his hands shaking. "We have to bury it again, just like he did." "No," Danny argued. "That's how we ended up with it. Someone else will find it, just like we did." "What do we do then?" Emma asked, tears brimming in her eyes. "We can't keep it, but we can't get rid of it either." The four of them sat in silence, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. A dangerous experiment. Danny came up with a risky idea. "What if we test it?" he said. "Maybe if we understand how it works, we can figure out how to stop it." Tommy looked horrified. Test it? Are you insane? Do you want more people to disappear? No one else will disappear, Danny insisted. We'll make a small wish, something harmless, something that won't hurt anyone. Emma hesitated. What if it doesn't work that way? What if the stone decides what the cost is? We'll never know unless we try, Danny said. Reluctantly, they agreed to one last experiment. They decided to wish for something simple, a single red flower to bloom in the clearing. Danny held the stone and made the wish, his voice trembling. I wish for a red flower to grow right here. The stone grew warm in his hands and a faint light pulsed within it. Moments later, a single red flower sprouted from the ground. For a moment, they thought nothing had happened. Then Sarah screamed. Emma turned to see Sarah clutching her arm, her face pale. Her fingers were covered in small red blisters, as if burned. The cost doesn't have to be a person, Emma whispered. It can be anything. Pain, memories, maybe even your life. The stone's true power. As they pieced together the journal's warnings and their own experiences, the children began to understand the stone's sinister nature. It didn't just take from them, it twisted their wishes, exploiting their deepest fears and desires. Emma suggested they take the stone to someone who could help. There's a woman in town, she said, Mrs. Halloway. People say she knows about strange things. Maybe she can tell us what to do. That night, they visited Mrs. Halloway, an elderly woman who lived on the edge of town. Her house was filled with books and artifacts, and she listened intently as the kids explained their plight. The stone is a trap, Mrs. Halloway said. It offers you what you want, but takes more than you realize. If you keep using it, it will destroy you. Can we destroy it? Danny asked. Mrs. Halloway shook her head. Number, it cannot be destroyed, but it can be returned to where it came from. Where's that? Tommy asked. Mrs. Halloway hesitated. I don't know, but if the stone was buried near the tree, it may have been left there as a marker. Something is under that tree, something that doesn't want to be disturbed. A final choice. The children returned to the woods with the stone, determined to find the truth. They dug beneath the tree and found something buried deep in the soil, a rusted metal box. Inside was an ancient-looking map and a warning scrawled in faded ink. Return the stone, or the price will never stop. The map led them to a cave deep in the forest. As they entered, they felt the air grow colder, the shadows darker. The cave walls were covered in strange carvings, the same symbols they had seen on the tree. At the center of the cave was an altar, and Danny placed the stone on it. The moment he did, the ground trembled, and the cave seemed to come alive. A voice echoed around them, low and malevolent. You cannot undo what has been done, the voice said, but you can leave if you are willing to pay the price. What price? Danny demanded. The voice didn't answer. Instead, the stone began to glow, and the children felt a pull, as if the cave itself was trying to drag them in. The escape, realizing they had no choice, the children ran. The cave shook violently, and the entrance began to collapse. As they scrambled out, Danny glanced back and saw the stone sink into the altar, disappearing into the earth. When they emerged into the forest, the trembling stopped. The stone was gone, but so were the strange whispers that had haunted them. The children made a pact never to speak of the stone again, but each of them carried the scars of their experience, both physical and emotional. Years later, as adults, they would sometimes dream of the stone and the terrible power it wielded. And in their nightmares, they would hear a voice, soft and seductive, calling out to them, "Make a wish." Then Sarah screamed. Emma turned to see Sarah clutching her arm, her face pale. Her fingers were covered in small red blisters, as if burned. The cost